I'm Carnage, I'm gonna slice your neck off. I'm Venom, I'm gonna eat your brains. Why do they always make these guys? Why don't they make a Mr. Negative figure? Aren't I a cool character? Don't mind me. I'm not playing with toys. Yeah, this is the continuing coverage of the Dark Web.
Welcome back, Webheads. Guys, I'm Mike Spider-Slayer, and this is Comic Book Corner 2.0, and welcome to another episode of Spider-Man Weekly, where I talk about your favorite Webhead Spider-Man, and we're doing complete coverage on the Dark Web event. And this week, we wound up getting 3 issues that has to deal with the event, and now we should have a pretty solid footing on where this is all going and how all these tie-ins are working, and if they are actually really worth the money to buy. So we had 3 released. We had Dark Web Ms. Marvel, Dark Web Gold Goblin issue 2, and Dark Web Mary Jane and Black Cat issue 1. Now, the way I just read them off was my order from least favorite to favorite. And just as expected, Dark Web Ms. Marvel is so loosely tied into this story, it's not even funny. But I guess they had to start somewhere with her, and Marvel feels like in order for Ms. Marvel to be relevant, she has to work for Norman Osborn. And in this comic, the reason why she has this job is not even a real reason. Yes, it's an internship. It's not actually a paid gig, but she's just taking job to job to job just to have it. No real reason, right? Kind of seeing what sticks. And I feel like that's what Marvel is doing with Ms. Marvel. Let's see where we can put her to where she can somehow fit in the Marvel universe. And this comic was just all not that great. Now, the artwork was pretty okay. I mean, there was nothing here to sit there and be like, oh my god, this is the best artwork that I've ever seen. But it was pretty good. I guess this was the original villain in the first volume of Ms. Marvel. If I stand corrected, just let me know. Or is that a new villain? Here we get to see Nakia here. So the facial expressions are pretty good. You know, it was there. To me, it was just there. It was okay, right? So what this comic was about was basically the lead up to Ms. Marvel up until the point where Ben Reilly trapped her in limbo. Okay, so if you care about what's been going on with Ms. Marvel and how she actually got the job at Norman Osborn's company, that's what this story was about. You got to see a little bit of a relationship building between a fellow co-worker in this story and how maybe it should be a date, not a date. And I felt like nothing for nothing, there was a little bit of an agenda here about like recycling, and there was about the religions on how they should be dating and how they shouldn't be dating, and it was just like, okay, like I get it, but at the same time, do I really need that in this comic book? Not really. But you get to see these two work for each other. They were just, I don't know, work with each other, and then all of a sudden, just like in every other comic book that we've seen before, Madeline Pryor plays her little organ and everything comes to life. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of King in Black, when you got to see the symbiotic dragons come to Earth and they started taking over Earth, and you got to see how each hero dealt with a symbiotic dragon. That's what this reminds me of right now at this point. If you care about a hero dealing with crazy creatures that turn into demonic mailboxes and demonic microscopes, this book's for you, because that's what happens in this comic book, okay? And that's what you see. I mean, that's really it. Up until the point at where you see Ben Reilly come face to face with Kamala, and she's like, are you friends with Spider-Man? And she's like, oh, I know him. And he's like, that's fine. I have to practice using my magic words so I can transport you to Limbo. And that's what happens. You get to see her transport to Limbo. I don't know, guys. This one's a stretch. This one so far, out of all the tie-ins, and I know there's only been 2 up until this point, it wasn't needed. This was not needed. I didn't need her to, I guess, see how she got the job. I guess maybe it needed to be explained because people were wondering, well, why does Kamala want to work for Oscorp? I guess, but her reasoning behind it was nothing special. It was just because she wanted an internship and she had other internships and she didn't like them. It's kind of dumb, honestly. And I don't know. This one was a miss for me. So let's move on to Dark Web Gold Goblin issue 2. So when it came to this issue, I was really excited for it because I loved seeing the psyche of Norman Osborn in the last issue, and to see that he's still dealing with him having the memories of being Green Goblin. Even though he's been cleansed of his sins, he still has to deal with those dark memories, and it haunts him forever. And you get to see him recover from, I guess, the fight that he had with Ben Reilly, and we get to see Liz Allen come try to rescue him and bring him home so he can be with the family and protect the family. And he feels like he has to be out there saving the world, trying to do things. While he's driving home, though, with the family, he's seeing visions. His freaking old dog comes into play, and it just it haunts him. So he's just having a very tough time mentally dealing with him being good. The one thing I don't like about this story, though, is it continues on this narrative with, Jack-O-Lantern being this guy that wants revenge on Norman Osborn. I really don't care. I mean, Jack-O-Lantern's okay, but it's they're making him this OP guy. He survived this big battle with Norman. He has his fractured skull, and then he winds up leaving the hospital bed. He's just a normal guy in a suit. How can that actually happen, right? So it looks like he's going to get revenge on Norman Osborn. He's been in a hospital for a day, and he's I'm fine. Okay. But whatever. I mean, it is what it is, but I just feel like Jack-O-Lantern's not needed in this book. I just love seeing the psyche of Norman Osborn and him confronting the Queen Goblin, right? Not the Goblin Queen, but the Queen Goblin, which is the newest Goblin character that was created from the Beyond story arc. And she was created because of the sins of Norman Osborn. And Norman never knew that. Peter withheld that information from him, and you get to see her confront Norman for the first time in the comic book, and she spills the beans on how she was created, and that's a pretty big deal, right? And somehow she wants to give these sins back to Norman, and he's no. He's I want nothing to do with this. And then you wind up getting to see this battle that commences throughout the comic book. So that was very interesting, and you get to see the sins kind of chasing after him, and he's trying to avoid it, and then he comes across and tries to call Peter and says, "You withheld some pretty important information from me, Peter. You need to call me back," right? And then you get the end of this comic where you get to see Jack-O-Lantern again putting on the mask for the second time after just being severely injured. I don't know. I didn't agree with that part. I like all the Norman Osborn parts, and I loved how he confronted the Queen Goblin. I thought that was excellent, how he finally found out, how he was cleansed and where all those sins went to. That was pretty good. I'm definitely sticking with this no matter what. I mean, I'm sticking with them all no matter what, but this beats that Miss Marvel book by a far. I don't even know why Miss Marvel's in it. It doesn't even need to. All right, let's talk about this one. This one caught me off guard big time. And this one is the Dark Web, Mary Jane, and Black Cat issue 1. Great cover here by J. Scott Campbell. Love when he does the Black Cat covers. And Mary Jane being in this is just a plus. But when you open up this comic book and you see the artwork, it is absolutely gorgeous. Love the facial expressions, the coloring, all the action that goes along in this book. And yes, that is Mary Jane in this comic, and she does have powers. How does she have powers? We don't know. You get to see Paul, you get to see the kids. They know she has powers. Spider-Man doesn't know that Mary Jane has powers. What has happened to Mary Jane? There is so many more questions after this comic book, more than ever. And I feel like this book adds to that, Spider-Man story, because Mary Jane has been so left out of the story. and you don't know what's been going on with her. And this book reveals that there's been something going on. And she does powers against all these limbo creatures that Madeline Pryor has put out there. And Black Cat is there to check on Mary Jane because Spider-Man asked her to, and she knows she's just a regular human being. But when she comes across Mary Jane, she's handling herself there with all these powers. And you're just like, what the heck is happening? Now, when you see Mary Jane's power set, it's like a slot machine. So whenever she thinks of something, right, it's like, for instance, you get to see the slots here that comes across the 3. And whenever she lands, that's the power she gets. Kind of weird. We don't know how it works, how she got it, and, how she can activate it. Really, it seems like she thinks about it, right? But it makes sense for her because her line is, face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot. So this is like a slot machine. When you hit the jackpot, you hit it big. So when she hits it big, she gets great powers. And then when she doesn't, when she's down on her luck a little bit, she gets shitty powers. So for instance, later on in this comic book, she goes into limbo where everybody else seems to be going. And she becomes like this pudding monster. And that's how she fights people. It's comical. I love how Black Cat and Mary Jane interact with each other in this book. And it was just a lot of fun. But that's what this book was. It was just Black Cat, Mary Jane fighting side by side with each other, trying to defeat the creatures of limbo. And you're just trying to figure out, well, why did Mary Jane get these powers? And seeing her having these power sets was pretty badass. And then you wind up getting to the end of this book and you wind up seeing this villain by the name of Belasco. Is he new? Like, am I missing something? Is he a new character? Let me know in the comments below. He looks like a Mephisto character or something. Just interesting and weird. And then you wind up getting a story at the end of this, a little bit of a backup story that has to deal with Black Cat, which has nothing to do with the dark web, which I felt like it wasn't really needed. But this one was just a lot of fun. And I feel like not only does it doesn't, I want to say it adds too much depth to the dark web story, but it adds a little bit more depth to the Amazing Spider-Man story because Mary Jane is a major character here, right? And it's just like, okay, this is adding to more of those questions on what has happened with Mary Jane in this 6-month time period, which I'm sure we'll explore once this event is done. So that book was the best. Now, again, I said it before, everything that has in common with these tie-ins is all these heroes are going into limbo. You have the X-Men in limbo, you have Mary Jane and Black Cat in limbo, you have Ms. Marvel in limbo, okay? So are they all going to be fighting? Are they all going to be trapped? Like, what is the main purpose of this book besides just Ben Reilly trying to get his memories back and Madeline Pryor just getting back at Jean Grey? Like, I want to see the overall. There needs to be something more, doesn't it? I just feel like it's missing a little bit something, but I was definitely entertained and I liked 2 out of these 3 books. So I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about this whole Mary Jane stuff. I thought it was a lot of fun. Tell me in the comments below, what was your order from favorite to least? And what do you think about this event up to this point? Like I said, I compared it to King in Black, where it's just like all your heroes have to deal with symbiote dragons. They have to deal with going to limbo. So we'll see what happens. So there you have it, webheads. There is my thoughts on the dark web so far. And if you loved it, guys, I'll leave you more content right here to check out. In fact, this is my latest comic book haul where I show you everything that I picked up for the week. And if you like the video, make sure you hit that POW button, subscribe to the channel. And of course, guys, always remember, keep buying, keep collecting, but always read those comics. Guys, I'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye.